Okay, so we want to talk about arbitration a little bit more. And
First, governance.
well, governance in general.
Which makes EOS quite unique and strong.
Right.
How does it involve? While other guys, I don't see much about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay, so I've got two presentations I can offer. One's governance in general, and the other one is about blockchain governance with EOS software in particular. So why don't I put that on the screen, and I'll just walk you through it and the viewers as well. Okay, so we're recording. I will share the screen with my keynote presentation here, and I'll get into presentation mode.
Great.
Alrighty. And plus here we are in the corner.
All right.
So there we go. Okay, super. So before I get into the guts of governance, this is an audience, this is a presentation I give audiences around the world. We talk about the non-governance features of EOS being faster, smarter, better in various ways, half-second blocks, stuff that most of our people watching this probably already know. The delegated proof of stake, being greener and having greater decentralization from a practical perspective. We expect to have over 1,000 transactions per second at launch, we hope. And then having human-friendly things like account names instead of just long addresses, ability to recover keys and hacked accounts, developer-friendly features like declarative security and self-describing interfaces, and of course no transaction fees, but we are rate limited. And I talk about the promise of the public blockchain, which is decentralization and the ability to empower individuals and small groups over the big centralized players, the Facebooks and the Ubers of the world. The fact that a public blockchain gives you greater ease of entry for new competitors, which can be bad as well because your competitors can come along and chase you, but it is good for consumers and you can better serve customers. But what's the problem with the public blockchain? Well, it's also decentralization because there's nobody in charge. And when there's nobody in charge, the crooks can go crazy, which we've seen on Bitcoin, all the cryptocurrencies. Up until now, the code is the law. And in less than a decade, we've seen hackers steal over $1.2 billion worth of just Bitcoin and Ether, not even counting other cryptos.
On this, I want to add something more. In our life, dealing with real-world problem by technology mostly, there is one thing, like the system normally or 100% won't act wrong, but it's the human being. Like the hacker itself, the system can prove for forever, they can be, much more secure, like, stick on what they ask to do, but it's all the human beings, all the process around the, system that caused problem.
Yeah, Bitcoin itself has never been hacked in the center, but the endpoints get hacked. The exchange, the wallet, people steal keys. There's phishing sites, and those are all
the bad acting employees.
Bad acting employees, and those problems don't go away. Here's a list on the left-hand side of the screen of just the major cryptocurrency thefts. Across the bottom and larger is the NIM hack. That was $500 million worth of NIM, which wasn't even in the total on the prior page. And then on the diagonal on screen, you'll see that that's the Parity wallet, 300 million in cryptocurrency, accidentally lost forever. And it's a mess. Here's actually the dialogue with the guy as he was destroying the wallet, discovered what he'd done. He's like, oh, I guess I'm famous now. It's just not working. You can't build real-world commercial-grade applications in an environment like this. Right now, the big players in public blockchain so far are speculators who are playing a zero-sum game. Right? If you buy low and sell high, it's because some other idiot bought high from you. And miners who create coins but don't create value, above the coins. Now, they do secure the chain, and that there's value in that, but no economic value is being created. And of course, crooks who have a negative-sum game. So there's no real disincentive to bad behavior in these early public blockchains. And we're not seeing real apps, real commerce, and no real value creation, in my opinion. Other than CryptoKitties. I'll give you the CryptoKitties. Okay, so why is that? Well, the reason why is because human behavior on technology platforms is always subject to four different forces. Uh, legal, market incentives, legal constraints, social constraints, and then the actual code.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from Lawrence Lessig, his new Chicago school model. He wrote this back in the 90s, I think it was. He was talking about the internet, but it applies to all technology platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll walk around the margin here. So you start with the market forces. You say, let's take an example. Why does somebody not steal your CryptoKitty? Mm-hmm. And the answer number one, the market force that would disincentivize them from stealing it is they can't make any money. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, even if I got away with it, maybe the resale value is just not high enough. And so that's the way the market might affect my decision to steal or not steal the CryptoKitty. Then there's the legal forces. I might get caught. If I'm caught, I might get punished. So there's a disincentive. Socially, my friends might disapprove of me if they've discovered I had stolen a CryptoKitty. Or I might have internalized my society's values and I might feel shame if I stole something that wasn't really mine. All right. And then from the code perspective, maybe it's not cryptographically possible to steal the CryptoKitty. Yeah. It's just locked. Yeah. Okay. And so those are the four forces.
They can try to, hack the private.
You can try to hack, right. Yeah. And so look at the Bitcoin world. Only two of these forces are really present. We have the code, which creates market incentives through the proof of work to secure the chain. It's been very effective. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of law enforcement from the outside. You see it on the right, where really big crypto thefts in Bitcoin get prosecuted, but they don't all get prosecuted, and they aren't all successful. And there's no social forces.
I know case in China, someone stole probably, 20 million was US dollar was like Bitcoin got caught.
Okay.
Yeah. But
so the law forces are there, but they're not there very strongly compared to what you're going to see in a minute. And they're outside the system itself, right? Bitcoin doesn't have any on-chain legal defense or legal mechanisms. It just has code. Yeah. And no social forces as part of the governance. Yeah, I would claim. Now you look at Ethereum. Mm-hmm. Ethereum has, again, the code from the left. The code is used to tweak market incentives from above. And there's some social governance. There's informal governance. It's off-chain. It's through the EIP system. It's through conversations. Right. The occasional fork, like Ethereum Classic, because they can't agree. And again, there's law enforcement from the outside. And that's how things are today. Now contrast that with EOSIO. All four forces are co-equal, each in its proper place to constrain the behavior of the actors, right? So let's look at that. The code allows you to, allows the block producers to replace broken code, freeze accounts, and move funds against the will of the current holder of those funds. But the block producers are only allowed to do that when told to do so by an arbitrator. In terms of market forces, everyone's got skin in the game. Block producers don't want to lose their position and lose their income, which they would lose if they got voted out because they misbehaved. So there's a strong incentive to keep the token holders happy. If you look on the far right, the Constitution, the Ricardian contracts, and the arbitration make up the legal system. And then socially, we've got repeated interactions. We've got the ability to hold referenda, the ability to discuss things and make decisions. And we've created an expectation that we will, as a community, move together. So if we vote and I lose the vote, I'll still support the result. And a lot of these elements are on-chain. The election of block producers is on-chain. The block producers do have superpowers, but they can only use them when an arbitrator tells them to, or where a referendum does. Arbitrators can only rule on specific cases. They can't walk around looking for things to do, right? Somebody has to issue a dispute. And we use the constitution of the blockchain and the contract language to guide the arbitrators in their decisions, which brings us to Ricardian contracts. Huge issue here. And I'll show you an example. And you want to start with the purpose of your smart contract. what is this action that you want to carry out? For example, cast a vote for block producers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then you ask, what's my intention? What are the rules and constraints that we want the user to agree to? Even if you can't code that constraint, you can state the intention in English or whatever your local language is.
Mm-hmm.
English is the default language for the chain for now, although you could have a DAP or an enclave that use a different language.
Yeah, many other block producers are working on Chinese version of everything, Korean version.
Sure.
Yeah, Japanese version in the future maybe. Yeah.
Right. So here's an example Ricardian contract for the vote producer action, which is a system action. And this is a recent version of the Ricardian contract that I wrote that's installed in the software distribution. So the intention is to cast a valid vote. And the text of it says, as an authorized party, I, the signer of this transaction, wish to vote on behalf of some voter account, which could be me or it could be someone whose proxy I hold, in favor of the block producer candidates. And then you would insert an array of up to 30 producer accounts with a voting weight equal to all tokens currently owned by the voter, blah, blah, blah. Notice the text in blue. If I am not the beneficial owner of these shares, beneficial owner is a legal term.
Right.
You know this from finance.
Yeah, exactly.
I stipulate I have proof that I've been authorized to vote these shares by the beneficial owners. And I stipulate I have not and will not accept anything of value in exchange for these votes on penalty of confiscation of these tokens and other penalties. All disputes arising from this contract shall be resolved in the EOS Core Arbitration Forum. And then that Ricardian contract goes in that folder, EOS.system. EOSREAL.system is right there next to the rest of the source code. Here's what it looks like in Markdown Editor. And then you can use the double curly braces to on a browser, do a replacement where you show them the parameter that they're putting in. You know, I, Fred Fox, wish to vote on behalf of myself for these tokens, these producer candidates, blah, blah, blah. And then you might even make them put a check mark next to some of these clauses on the left. If I'm not the beneficial owner, I stipulate I haven't accepted anything. And then make them sign it with their cryptographic signature. And now they just agreed in writing and they signed it. And this text is attached to the transaction itself. So the arbitrator can say, look, you signed this. You said right here that you, and so you're really setting yourself up with a very clear trail of what you promised versus what you actually did. So if you break these rules, if here you just promised you'd follow the rule, and then you go, oops, then you're in trouble. Then with regard to arbitration, as a block producer, this is part of the draft block producer agreement. As a block producer, I agree to accept as valid any arbitrator's order that's signed by an arbitrator that the chain shows was assigned to a case such that the order affects only the accounts named in the case and the arbitrators in good standing with their arbitration forum, and the original transaction that gave rise to the case names that arbitration forum as the venue for dispute resolution. And I need to add, or the parties have agreed to use this. You have to agree on chain that you're going to use this arbitrator. So the two disputants both agree to use the arbitration forum. The forum assigns the arbitrator. You didn't object to that arbitrator. Boom, you're bound. And the block producer can double check all these facts on chain. And here's the order, and it all lines up. So a malicious arbitrator who wanted to just steal something, they would have to find a way to create a case that somebody else had to raise.
Right.
And it's like, how do you make that happen? That'd be very hard to engineer that, which is the whole point. We want to make it hard to do it wrong and easy to do it right. And then I get into blockchain use cases with the rest of the presentation. So I'll stop the presentation there.
Yeah, this is great. This is the exact thing, especially this page, the 4 forces page.
Let me pull that back on screen. You like that 4 forces?
Yes.
There.
Yes, this is the core.
This is the core of governance right here.
Yes, yes.
And
this solves the problem.
Well, it gives us the tool to solve problems. It
Exactly.
And we'll still have problems, folks. We will still have problems.
But it's the next generation thing, you know.
Right. And then new problems will be discovered.
Right.
The solution brings rise to new problems.
Right.
Solutions.
I think
because that's the circle of life.
In our view, it's the thing that makes EOS the 3.0 blockchain operating system.
Makes it different.
Not like the TPS. TPS says something, you know,
it's good,
especially for long term. You know,
fast is good.
Exactly.
No transaction fees
there
are good.
Are at least tons of blockchains that can, you know, work out 1,000 TPS per second now.
Maybe.
Right. So yeah, this is something, you know, truly make the revolutionary change or development on the blockchain. That's what we are here for.
And I think you're going to see that this becomes the new standard for commercial grade public permissioned blockchains. That they're going to be expected to abide by certain rules, that the enforcement of at least some of those rules will happen on chain, and that there are going to be people in the loop anytime the code falters. And of course, you want the code to work, and 99.9% of the time the code will work exactly correctly. And then when there are disputes, most of those disputes will end up being customer service opportunities, not arbitration cases. I mean, you're going to spend $50, $100, $200 trying to acquire a new customer, and then the customer's not happy. Well, of course you'll want to make them happy because you want them to stick around and be a repeat customer.
Right.
You don't need to fight them in arbitration. You want to make them happy and fix the code, which we give you the ability to do. And occasionally there will be full-blown arbitration cases. Absolutely, yes. And some of them will be very complicated. And that's why we're using I'll talk about this in a different, I've got slides for this, but I'll talk about it. Our arbitration core language draws from the International Center for Dispute Resolution rule set. That's our starting point. And then we've rewritten that to make it appropriate for the blockchain. And that is a very well-established set of rules that have been around for decades. It's related to the EOSREAL, which is the United Nations rule set for international trade dispute resolution, international commerce. It seems like a good basis for building arbitration on an international blockchain. And so what we're doing is we're finding this huge existing body of knowledge of how to handle disputes, and we're leveraging that in our space on our blockchain. So, and a lot of people will say, well, what if the arbitrator this, or what if that? Guys, all those problems that come into your head exist out there in regular arbitration land already. Okay?
For centuries.
And I'm not saying that they're perfectly solved. I'm saying that we have mechanisms for addressing them. People have been trying to rip each other off for millennia.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have countermeasures, and we do our best, right? So buyer beware, be careful, protect your private keys, and be cautious.
Right.
And make use of arbitration if it's appropriate. So that's the flyby for governance.
That's cool. That's good. That's the best. That's
awesome.
the best.
I like it too.